Good evening, everyone. It is Kai Love. Welcome to Eye Recite. I am so excited to be here tonight. First of all, it's March. And everyone who knows me knows that March is a special month because it is my birthday month. March 20th is my birthday, and we will consider this Eye Recite my birthday present, my birthday edition. And I am extremely excited to have this conversation with this brother. I have to tell you about the first time that I saw this brother. It was well past the time that I had heard about this brother. But the first time I saw you was at a packed house at the Quarry. And you were doing, I believe, some either you were featuring with Solace or just was performing with Solace at the Quarry. And when I tell you, the people were swooning over your words. And I was, because I'm short, and everybody was standing up and whoop, whoop, and wop, wop. And I was like, who is that person? Because the voice wasn't familiar to me, and I'm a fan of voices. So I was like, who is this brother? And I was sitting next to Kels. And Kels said, that's Prince of Poetry. I was like, oh, what? Like, it was an exciting moment. So, audience, please welcome to Eye Recite, the Prince of Poetry.
Thank you so much. Right. I appreciate that. I'm super happy to be here. And the feeling is definitely mutual. First time I seen you were actually getting an award. That was on 43rd and Vincennes. You and Geronimo Speaks were being recognized for your contributions to poetry and to the arts. And since then, I've consistently watched you perform on many platforms, and be it singing or just poetry, you've always left an amazing impact. So it's good to be recognized by somebody who's definitely recognizable. So thank you for that.
No problem, and thank you. So this is gonna be a love fest, apparently, because we have a lot.
And that would only make sense, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. Let's start with you, Prince of Poetry, as a father.
Okay.
So I interviewed my father, who passed away in 2017, but I interviewed him in 2015 on another podcast that I have. And I asked him, how did he feel when he knew that I was coming? And he paused for a second and he looked super reflective and he was like, terrified. And my father was an older father. So the fact that he was still terrified after, serving in the military and fighting wars and all these other things, but little old baby girl me was terrifying to him. So Share your fatherhood journey with us. The joy, the pain, some of the mistakes you think you may have made as a father, or things that that you've done really, really well that your kids are going to really appreciate now and maybe even when they get older. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Man, this is both a very sensitive topic for me and a very exciting one, all in the same token. Anybody who knows me knows that I talk a lot about my children. They are my entire world. As a kid myself who grew up without his father, being present in my children's lives was a non-negotiable for me. I met my own dad when I was 28 years old after hiring a private investigator to search for him. And so when I finally met him, that experience was something for a whole nother show that we would probably have to break down in segments. But as it relates to my own children, I got married when I was 20 years old. And my wife at that time had a son already, and he was 3 when we first met. And I've had taken care of him up until his adult years. I had my first biological child when I was 22 years old, my daughter, Kristen. And when I first found out that we were expecting, and it was a girl, I was already nervous as a dad being a stepfather. I think in many ways I was excited about the opportunity to father a son who wasn't mine, simply because I could live vicariously through him. Right. The idea of a savior or a man coming into my life was something I had always wanted. I always wanted my mom to find someone who could, keep me safe in the hood, and who could raise me and show me the ropes, and, be that father figure for me. And that never came. So I kind of jumped at the opportunity with the stepfather role. And then when I had a child of my own, I was afraid all over again. It's a different type of fear. I wondered what she would be like. I wondered how she would react to things. I wondered if I would just be good, if I would be pretending to be a good dad, or if things would come naturally to me. And they very much did. My daughter is my entire world. We have very powerful conversations, even though she's only 12 years old. We do tea time on Saturdays, and we have real deep, meaningful conversations. She's just as funny as I am, incredibly sarcastic. And some of the things that I did that I'm not as proud of is just learning how to adjust to their growth and trying to stay connected to the fact that they're children and they're growing. And I used to be there. So I'm always trying to find myself, like, thinking as she gets older, like, okay, so now she's 9 and she's a girl. I need to remember back to when I was 9 and what life was like at 9. Like, what was that world? And that has helped me to not jump to conclusions, not to be too upset with things, and just kind of allow myself to just reflect a little bit more. Haven't always done well with that. Sometimes I can overreact. Sometimes I'm a little more stressed about actions that she makes at her age than I want to be. But I'm very proud of the fact that I really push emotional intelligence in my children. One thing I worked on immediately was learning how to apologize to my kids. Realizing that mistakes are something that we make and will make for the rest of our lives. And so it was very important to me to never make them feel that adults could make mistakes. And once I started doing that, I realized my children reflected the same energy. When I apologize to them, they'll apologize right back to me. Being present is also very important to me. Holidays and field trips and all the things that were important to them, I wanted to make sure that they saw me there. There were never going to be moments where it's like, man, I wish my dad was here. I never wanted my children to say that. So it was important to me to just show up. At the time, when they were younger than they are now, my son is 6 and Kristen's now 12. My stepson, Corey, he's 19 now. I was working for corporate America. I was a manager at Chase, but it didn't matter how important my job was. Anytime there was a field trip, I made sure that I was present. I was there. I was taking the day off because I wanted my children to remember that dad was always around, and not to have a memory of an assembly program or anything where I didn't show up. And so that's been something that I've stuck with for the duration. And me and my children have such a powerful relationship. I'm very close to them. I know a lot of parents say, like, you're there. I'm not my child's friend, but in this space, I'm both their friend and their father. We have just as much fun with one another. We can laugh with one another. We can joke with one another. But when it's time to be a dad, I'm dad. Even if I'm dad the friend, even if we're in the middle of a game that we're playing, I don't forget my role or ever get too comfortable with my children where I stop being a father. I'm always that. And as they continue to grow, I hope our friendship continues to grow and just continues to evolve into different spaces.
I love that so much. One of the things I have on my YouTube channel is a speech I kind of did about dads needing to show up. Yeah. To just show up. Sometimes all a child needs to see is when they look in the stands, the person that made them or loves them is there for them, no matter how big or small the moment was. And I shared a story about my father worked, I am clearly his child because I had like 16 whole jobs, right? And so he had like 16 whole jobs too. So he worked a lot and worked very hard to ensure that we had a good life. Yeah. And it didn't matter what was happening at either of his jobs. It didn't matter if he didn't have much sleep. When I tell you that my daddy showed up and it made the difference in my life, it made me feel like that no matter what was going on, that I had that support, that I had that interest, that he was interested in me as a person. And you need that. Like, that's like the first foundational moment of relationship building when your parents show up for you. And it makes me so sad, and probably the reason why I have devoted a great deal of my life to working with children, because I feel like they need an adult to show up for them consistently. And if I have to be that, in person or through programming, then certainly I'll do my best. But I love that you have wrapped your fatherhood journey in presence,
absolutely,
in creating intentional moments with your daughter and with your other children, and encouraging conversation.
Absolutely.
One of the things I think we as humans just don't do as well as we need to is communicate. And so even in this platform, it's about the conversations. Yes, it's about the poetry too, but it really is about the conversations. So
yeah, and I think that it's so vitally important that our children realize that we dignify them as human beings. I think as a society, we've done better with the idea that, with the notion that children should be seen and not heard, which was something that we practiced back in the day. But I know that came from a mind state of survival, right? That when our children acted out of turn, they could mess things up for us because of systemic racism and all the other things that we were dealing with. Right. But now that the world has shifted a bit. Obviously, we still have some things that we struggle with, but now allowing our children to speak and be human beings. You get a chance to see their personalities. You get a chance to see them to actually think, reflect, ponder, be heard. And I think that can do so much for the type of human beings that they will become. The ability to allow them to speak up and talk and be expressive, is what I feel that they deserve. Even my son. So I spent a lot of time talking about my daughter, but my youngest son, Caleb, one of the things I wanted to make sure I did was I wanted to dispel any thoughts of not allowing him to be emotionally in tune, and specifically with a focus on crying. Yeah. I was taught growing up that, boys aren't supposed to cry, and I was a sensitive kid growing up, and I was in the heart of the hood. So I understood why my cousins and the men that I knew around me didn't want me to be, quote unquote, what they consider soft, because in the hood that paints you as a target. But that thinking also keeps emotions suppressed, and therefore we don't know how to properly express what we feel. So when we're sad, we get angry, or we may get violent, maybe we may get disrespectful because we don't know what to do with this emotion. I wanted to be very, very intentional with my son and my daughter, obviously, and teaching them how to express themselves, and if they needed to cry, that would not be something that they would be chastised for. Right. I never wanted to give my children fear of expressing their emotions, making them victims for having feelings, so to speak, which is in a line of a piece that I wrote. But I encouraged it and still do to this day, because I think we need to promote more emotional health, especially in young Black boys who have been taught that, crying is a sign of weakness, when really it's one of the best ways to show signs of strength. Such
a relevant point as well. I had wrote a blog post about it's okay to cry, and I placed a picture of a Black man with just one tear as the photo for the blog. Yeah. And when I tell you that I had so many men saying, we love reading your stuff, but we are not going to read that, because even looking at the picture with the tear caused some type of emotional response, that they rejected the experience. Yeah. And I know that Opinionated and now you here in this conversation, I know have, reached this topic to say, we got to start talking about allowing men and boys to express themselves.
Absolutely.
And tears is not a sign of weakness, of course, right, it all depends on how you process your emotions. Some people get super angry and cry. It doesn't mean that you're sad or that you're not empowered. It just means that your face has released the emotions, and sometimes it comes out as reckless voice and language, but sometimes it manifests itself in tears. And I think that one of the most beautiful and vulnerable and dare I say sexy things that can happen with a man is for them to be at peace and feel safe enough to share those tears with someone that they love or someone that they respect. It's a beautiful moment in humanity for us to be able to connect through tears, whether it's sadness or happiness, celebratory, uncertainty, whatever the emotion that evokes it. I think it's a beautiful connection, and we got to do better about dismissing its power.
Amen. Amen. I love it. I totally agree. We stand in agreement with that 100%.
And on that note, share a piece.
I sometimes wonder why I've been told I shouldn't cry. My whole life, this alpha male mentality has surrounded me, and it's kept my pupils dry. I mean, I've even watched some of my people die, and I've battled with my conscience. And I've had internal arguments. If any water will hit my eyes, and I still hurt inside, but pride. It'll make you lie. I can remember hearing the wails of my own hurting mother, but my own tears I couldn't even discover. I guess you could say bounty sheets had been slipped under my eye sockets and kept them covered. And if any water leaked out, my pride would be there like the quicker, picker, upper, and I recover by standing tall. I'd be flexing and all. I mean, I can't let my stature fall, so water has to just bounce off this wall. I don't watch brothers get buried, and I know kings to this day who wouldn't even tear up. Like God didn't give them tear ducts. Like he somehow slipped up when he constructed us. This crushed us, broken us, malfunctioning us. I done heard conversations be like, hey, King, slow up. Let me help you to grow up. So what? You say you hurting? So you crying? For what purpose? You got water, work's working, it's better if they never surface. Keep the pain to yourself. Ain't you a man? Can't you stand? Be strong for your fam? Then you better hold the water back. Like, damn. But I can only be as strong as I am. Prince, are you strong? I am. Then you better not cry, brother. I know it hurts, but a real man's got to remember his worth. But that makes it worse because now I find myself questioning their words like, but didn't God water the earth to make its fruitage grow, allowing first sprouts to show? Well, no. My brothers stay tough. Meanwhile, they're getting hit with the hardest hits. Do you want to know why that man looks so hard? Because that's a face he ain't watered yet. He will let his skin crack before he lets the water in. What have you ever seen grow without consistent water in? I'm imploring my brothers to start exploring the purpose of your eyes. They're not just for seeing or for blinking or for closing when you're sleeping. My brothers will swear on a stack of Bibles they love Jesus, but they won't imitate his weeping. It's like they think God is a weakling, and your manhood will be weakened if you cried on one weekend. But what are you really thinking? That there's no healing power in tears? That a real man can't reveal what he feels when that pain comes near? That you're somehow stronger for prolonging your moment of expression? You don't see being able to cry as a blessing? Have you ever heard a father threaten his son for crying when he's hurt? Yelling and telling his son that if he cries, he's going to hit him. So now his son's got to grow up being a victim for having feelings. But imagine a world where our young kings could actually reveal what they're feeling. And when he sees the tears you're spilling, you could help heal him. Have him no longer believe in having feelings would kill him, because that thinking is so absent of God, who you're telling him to be ain't even the real him. We have to stop teaching our sons that tears are venom, because that thinking even impacts the way they treat women. Yeah, we all talk about healing. Well, healing can only begin once you acknowledge a hurt feeling. Once you release all the toxins and let go of all that nonsense that's been fed to your subconscious, because it's only created enmity. Your fake manhood has become your enemy. You're just pretending to be. I guess that's why they call it masculinity. It's time for a change. not more of the same. Our kings need to heal, and the crown will fit better when you're sane. And although it sounds insane to use tears as a way to release your pain, we have to remember that God's promise of that beautiful bow will only show after it rains. Go ahead and cry, King.
Go ahead and cry, King. Yes, I love that. Such beautiful words pieced together to tell this story, and what a wonderful segment from our conversation. So thank you for sharing that. You can't hear me? You can't hear me? Uh-oh. Can you hear me now? Oh, Lord. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay. Not sure what's happening. That was the power. That was some brother trying to rebuke the tears, child. Trying to say, King, ain't doing that today. So I would like to move on to my next question. You referenced a little bit about your origin story. Are you from Chicago? Where did you grow up? And tell me what you've carried from your childhood into your adulthood.
Man, I am from Chicago, born and raised. I was born in Inglewood in Chicago, 59th and Paulina is my birthplace, literally my birthplace, because I was born at home. My grandmother was my mom's nurse. She cut the umbilical cord and brought me into this world. Raised here, stayed in several neighborhoods in Chicago most of my life. We moved a lot when I was a kid, so I was very familiar with the city. One of the things that I would say that I carried from my childhood on, and I would, obviously honor my mother in this, is constantly creating a family feeling everywhere we went. We moved a lot, we struggled a lot financially, but one of the things that was very consistent was that we always felt like a family. We had some stresses, of course, growing up, like any family did. We had some dirt, we had some trauma, we had some generational curses that we didn't break either. But it always felt like family. And now, as a grown man, that's also a feeling I always want to keep around for my children, making sure that they know their family members, are close to their family members, see their family. And my mom had a very shirt off her back mentality. People would always come to our house when they were dealing with some financial woes of their own. They needed her to just cook a meal, play cards, whatever it was. Our home was like the hub. And I would say that that's probably exactly what's happened to me. As I've gotten older, I've always wanted my house to be a home for whoever I decided to love on and embrace as family. And I've been blessed to have people come to my home as a place for them to kick back, have a drink, sit and talk, chat it up, just watch a movie, whatever it is. Typically, my home is the place for that to happen. And so I've carried that. I want to continue to carry that. That's definitely something that we passed down, that's been passed down to us, and a legacy that I want to keep going with.
That's amazing. The construct of family, whether it's blood or people that you're just close enough to that can be family, certainly the pandemic has affected that so much. Like, I miss my family. I miss kicking back and, as you say, playing dominoes, playing Uno. So here's a question. It's an Uno question. You play Uno?
I do. Stacks, triples, and doubles.
See, where is this? That must be a Chicago thing. Because, I don't understand.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I don't know if it's a Chicago thing, but it is the right thing. So I don't know. Listen, Chicago's clearly doing something right. Because if you don't play stacks, triples, and doubles, you really haven't played Uno. I just want to put that out there. You haven't played.
Wait. So now it's on. And the next time that we are allowed to be in the same space, we're going to have to bust out an Uno game, for real.
I'm ready for it. Let's get it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Too funny. Too funny. So my next question is from Facebook. You made a post. So many of us have missed out on amazing connections because we chose to lay down with people we should have helped to get up.
Whew.
Expound on that.
I think that we've all, so let me first give this out with full disclosure. I say we a lot in my Facebook posts with intention, because I do not ever consider myself free from some of the same mistakes that I now have learned from. The reason I feel it's important to qualify that is because sometimes people look at me and they're like, oh man, you saying a word today, like you preaching today, or they may look at me as just somebody who's giving advice to the world. But I'm not, I don't and will never claim to be the expert or the guru on anything connected to life, but I am the expert and the guru on Christian's experiences. And I can share them based on what I've learned in this walk that I've been going in my life for these 34 years. So that statement was made specifically because it's just been true. Sometimes we see a person that we feel attracted to, which is a normal thing. We are humans. So it's not some, evil, eerie energy that, allows us to be physically, sexually attracted to people. It happens. And sometimes we can engage in very powerful connections without the physical being a requirement. But sometimes we also don't know what to do with this energy. And so when we're surrounded by this energy, our thought is, okay, I got to touch it. I got to feel it. I got to lay down with it. I need to experience it physically and carry out this carnal instinct that I have. And when that happens and we put the physical over the connection that we were meant to engage in, may it be a business venture or perhaps an emotional connection that we're supposed to share, we instead decided to give the focus of our connection to the physical. Once we've done that, unfortunately, a lot of times there's a vulnerability that we've shared intimately that now feels awkward in other spaces, where sometimes we don't feel as comfortable doing business with the person as we may have at one time. Sometimes we don't feel like leaning on them emotionally because we feel like it's going to take another turn into the physical. And I think that when we start to transform our sex energy that we may feel into progression in terms of whatever our actual goals are for one another, let's say perhaps we're supposed to be in business together, we can take that attraction and that energy and we can put all that into the thing that we are meant to actually do with one another. I think amazing things can be realized. But I think sometimes we are so focused on collecting all these soul ties that we kind of find ourselves stagnated and sometimes keeping other people down from being able to experience the greatness they're supposed to walk in because we value them only in this sex space. And even though those other things are great, we've given so much credit to the physical. And unfortunately, I feel like that kind of inhibits us from going where we're supposed to go with people. Maybe prohibit is the right word. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you. And I think that especially as poets or
absolutely
people who have a way with words, that people tend to fall so easily into that like sexualized space and that erotic space because it creates energy and magic. And I'm not saying that that's not something that we as humans, I mean, God made us with all of our parts and all of our goodness and all of the glory. So certainly we are supposed to engage with each other in those ways. But I think our ratio of importance and relativity of importance is off skew. And it's so fun. It's just such a funny and not ha-ha funny, but more uncanny conversation to have with someone who is like totally afraid of being like face to face with someone and kissing them. Like they feel like that's way too intimate. But then we'll have a whole sexual relationship with somebody. You know, like, wait a minute, you ain't even been close enough to get all in the feels. You know what I'm saying? And they'd be like, no, that's too intimate. That's too. And I'm like, you even gave your whole body away and shared that energy with somebody who is for all intents and purposes, a stranger in some cases. And this is no shaming. This is no judgment. Nobody come for the car. Everybody do what you want to do. I'm just saying, I find it interesting that we have all these, I don't even call them soul ties, right? I call them unlaced shoes. Because you done walked all around the world with all of these different people, flip-flopping around, got calluses on your feet because your shoe ain't tied tight. So now you wondering why like things are happening and your energy is kind of off tilt. Well, because there's deposits of your steps everywhere. And now you got to figure out how you go back to collect them. You know, like, oh, Lord, where was I in 2014? Lord, because there's still a hole left. There's still something that's missing. Well, you done left a piece of yourself in Houston, child. Yep. You got to go collect your shoes, get yourself together. And I understand that, you know, we all, in search of love, have extended ourselves in incredible ways. Some not so smart. Some we thought we were being smart. And certainly some that we've, you know, had the wisdom of experience to help us get there. But my goodness.
Now, I do want to qualify and say I do believe some sexual, obviously, connections are going to be made. It's obviously nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that people should definitely explore when it makes sense to. But I love what you talked when you said the ratio of the way we see it, because here's how we can tell when we're unbalanced in this space. If every time we feel the attraction, the only thing we try to act on is the physical component. And if that becomes your consistent energy, then there's obviously some imbalance somewhere, right? Like, I'm surrounded by beautiful women all the time. Mm-hmm. And I do believe that in many cases, there's a mutual attraction that exists. Mm-hmm. But I don't act on all of them, right? And so I'm not like, okay, who's the next one I'm gonna get a chance to take down, right? That's not the idea behind it. You know, one of the reasons I've been able to do so much and have so many amazing connections and have so many great people help me is because I don't put that as the priority in my relationships. I don't make that my primary focus with the women in my life. And I'm surrounded by a lot of them. But I can only imagine how sour these relationships would be if the only thing I focused on was the physical manifestations of who they are. Because they're God bodies just like I am. They have so many skills and things that to offer outside of that. So I do believe that in search of love, we're going to make mistakes, but it's very important that we don't diminish people's highest quality, which is the spiritual side of who they are. So we're on the same page. Clearly, I could talk about this a lot.
Oh, but I love it. These are good conversations that I love to have. So you do talk about love a lot, right? Like if someone is following you on the Facebook or on the other socials, they'll see that you reference love, you do love quotes, you provide instructions or advice or redirection. And it almost feels very mission, right? Like, I'm not saying that you're one track, because you talk about a lot of things. Yeah. But certainly anyone who has interacted with you understands that you have a special relationship with love. Where does that stem from?
Man, so that's a great question. I've tried to pinpoint why I feel so strongly about love quite a few times. And I think that the space where it came from was during when I was married, there was a period of time where things weren't great. And if anybody's ever been married, we'd understand, or in any relationship for that matter, there are going to be ebbs and flows and, you know, of really tough times during our bond. And during this specific time in my marriage where things weren't great, I found myself studying love. 1 Corinthians 13, 4-8. Every day I would come home after work, I would just take each subsection and try to understand how this version of love works. And when you think love is not jealous, it does not brag, does not get puffed up, does not behave indecently. So for any Bible reader who reads that, we read that as just a way to talk about what love is supposed to be. But there's a whole breakdown of trying to understand that. And the 4 components of love that scripture refers to is philia, which is love between family members. Love between brothers or family, storge love, agape love, and then eros love, which is, love between 2 people who are like in love. Agape being the God version of that as well. So anyways, I studied it, and eventually I got to a place where I realized that we're not loving properly. A lot of us are loving from spaces of fear. A lot of us are loving from spaces of who hasn't hurt us yet. And some of us are loving from a space of trying to be loved back. So we love in unhealthy ways. We do so many things to try to be chosen. And I think that that's kind of the lane that I fell in a lot, thinking that somehow I could love somebody into loving me. And it just kind of became something that stuck. I started to really just see love differently. And then it changed my views on everything. It changed my views on religion. It changed my views on marriage. It changed my views on being a father. It changed my views on almost everything that I had learned my whole life. John 13:35 says that by this they will know that you are my disciples if you have love among yourselves. Then I applied that to the religious perspective. How so many people are like, I'm this religion, that religion, this religion, that religion. This is why this is true. This is why this is true. This is why this is true. But scripturally, we're taught that love is the highest mark of a person's connection to God. So that's what I focus on. How can I just be more loving today than I was yesterday and really mean it? And really connect to people from that perspective, knowing that I'm going to fail. And how can I love myself out of that? Because love does not keep account of the injury. Love is not focused on how you failed yesterday. Love is very focused on what we're going to manifest today. Right? So, yeah, that's where that came from.
That's beautiful. That's a wonderful perspective in how you're capturing this emotion, and it feels very practical. And I think that most people look at love as unobtainable. Amen. Or they look at it as untrue.
Yeah.
And so I love this kind of practical application of love. That's good.
Now, I do want to say this, though, Kai. The other side of that, though, so from a romantic standpoint, I am a lover at heart, like from a relationship standpoint. And that came from my mom. Mm-hmm. My mom had some rough experiences with men, and she basically groomed me and my brother to really see women in a different light. Like, she taught us, and obviously some of it was unhealthy because she was communicating from a place of pain, mm-hmm. but a lot of it was her trying to teach us to be better men. So my mom wanted me and my brother to learn how to cook, how to clean, how to wash clothes, do all these things that the, society expected women to do. She wanted us to be better. And so for her, it was very important that we learned to love emotionally, be emotionally intelligent and in tune. And so I want to give her the proper credit here, because a lot of the ways that I see love, and especially the way I exhibit it in my relationships, came from a place of wanting me to be better than what my mom had experienced in men. And so I push that narrative a lot, and you'll probably see that if you follow me or listen to any of my writings.
Indeed. And kudos to moms, because mothers are typically the first teachers. So a lot of our life's lessons and how we have molded ourselves as humans starts with that mother's love, for sure. Now let's move into something that I know is near and dear to your heart, and something that I have been enjoying as of recently. Let's talk about this album that you have put out here in the world, out here in these streets, the LoveHer Album.
Yeah.
Now, I'm a licensed therapist. Most folks don't know that about me, but I am. I'm not practicing because Lord have mercy. As a Pisces, I tend to consume all that information. I'll never go to sleep. It's just a lot. So I certainly consult when necessary. But as a therapist, as a licensed therapist, I could not help but love this album. Intentional Intimacy is my favorite on the album. There's a certain magic in the purest passion. There's a riveting reaction to every touch her body craves. Wow. Love aroused by every rub. We be biting necks and we be kissing lobes. It's love making on overload. Nothing else matters in this moment. Nothing else exists. Tell me about the process of the LoveHer album. Your features, what's your favorite piece? Share what it's like to release a project in a pandemic.
All right, so first of all, let me just kind of come down from you reciting my lines. That's gonna just take me a minute to just process that. That was beautiful. Wow. So the LoveHer album was created as a tribute to my grandmother, who passed January of 2020, January 10th, 2020. And it was important to me to get this out. I had been wanting to work on this album for a while, but the timing was just off. After Grandma passed, though, I knew that I was going to spend that next year, no matter what happened, putting this project out. And then a year later, project is released. The LoveHer album was created as a tribute, a confirmation, an affirmation that women and men are still engaging in powerful connections, regardless of what society is telling us about the gender debates. And more importantly than just loving a woman from a relationship standpoint, learning to love her in all her facets. If you actually buy the CD, the LoveHer album, you'll hear a song called Grandma's Hands and Black Girl Magic, which is on every streaming outlet outside of Apple, where we basically are talking about how we love the woman when she's our daughter. How do we love her when she's our grandmother or our mother? How do we love her when she's our significant other? How do we love her when she's our sister, right? And love her is truly both something that we can exercise externally, and for women, something that they can look at internally. And you look at tracks like Time for You or Broken Pieces that really talk about affirming self and spending some time with self. The therapy sessions were designed to encourage therapy in relationships, and both to allow men to realize that it's okay to talk to someone one-on-one and talk to someone as a unit, because we all need help no matter where we are in this healing journey that we're on. Sometimes we get very braggadocious about the work we've done to be better people, that we sometimes lack the empathy to focus on other people, where they are in their own journeys. And so we wear it as a badge of honor, like we're somehow better than them because of the shadow work we've done, right? But love, the Bible says knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. And so when we really focus on love, the goal is to build people and make them better. We should go in deeper with them, right? And not try to separate ourselves from the way that they are because we feel like we're at a different level. And so the LoveHer album was designed to capture all of that. Like, how do I love her in the ways that she may not necessarily be my wife? She might not be my wife. She may not be my girlfriend, but I'm still supposed to love her. And so starting the album off with the track, The Apology, I felt was so necessary. The apology was not a apology from man to woman. It was from the masculine energy in the universe apologizing to the feminine energy in the universe. And the reason I felt that was necessary was because somebody has to get the conversation started and take responsibility for how badly we've abused one another. And feminine energy in the universe is just as responsible for abusing the masculine energy in the universe too. So it's all cyclical. And I feel like we all have a share in what we need to do to get better. 1 second, I've got an alarm ringing here. Okay, sorry about that. That's been the motivation behind it. And so far, the feedback has been just, mind blowing.
And this is your first project, correct?
First project, yeah.
So how was it going into the studio, and share with the folks what that feels like? Because, you know, I come alive in the studio. I'm pretty shy in person, which is people always be like, girl, stop. It is the truth. But I love the studio because it's like a protected cocoon of creativity. So share your experiences.
It was amazing. I loved every minute of it. We had an amazing engineer in Gator who not only was a phenomenal source of like knowledge in terms of like the way things sounded, but Gator was invested in the project. You have to have an engineer who is going to be like, all right, go back in there. I don't like the way this sound. Gator made the LoveHer album his album. Right. And you want that from an engineer perspective. Like, he understood what we were trying to create, and he didn't bite his tongue. Love that. Every feature I had on this album was super intentional. Masha Vu, who's an amazing singer, songwriter, actress, did a phenomenal job of really tapping into the energy behind the LoveHer album and playing a role throughout it. So if you kind of listen to the album, you hear Masha Vu through several different tracks, and she's the focal point of the therapy sessions. K Love and I did an amazing piece called Broken Pieces, which I felt was right in her element of really focusing on healing and having a message of healing and loving self. You know, her course she teaches What About the Baby resonated so well with Broken Pieces, and that's been some of people's favorite tracks on the whole album. Black Girl Magic, which was done with me, Kels, Quest, Hood Rage, Geronimo Speaks, and Momentum, is also another track that was just stellar, next level. Intentional Intimacy with Bash, who is an amazing singer and songwriter who does amazing work all throughout the city and outside of the city with her amazing skill set on really bringing a feeling to music, which I really love to be able to work with her on. Erica Edwards, who played the therapist. That was amazing having her do the session. She was so in tune. She understood the spirit of what we were trying to create immediately, and she delivered. But who I want to give the most credit to in this case was Geronimo Speaks. Geronimo was creative director on the LoveHer album. And he had to hear me complain. He had to hear me be upset. He had to hear me change things 1,000 times. We had to go through some riffs ourselves and our learning and understanding one another. But the LoveHer album would not be where it is today if it wasn't for Geronimo. He did an amazing job of really capturing the dignity, the emotion, and challenging me both to push my pen and the way I performed inside the booth inside this project. So every single person that contributed was an intentional source. We needed every single person to make it what it is today. And I'm very proud of what we were able to create.
Yes, it's an amazing album and very different, not just in content, but in intent. Yeah. And I think it wasn't just about putting some things on an album that all sound good to you, but like it followed a flow and a storyline of sorts. It worked through the relationship. You were able to see yourself in different parts of the therapy sessions. It's just amazing. I really, really, really enjoy it. And have shared it among my network too, and folks are digging it as well. So kudos to you for this project. A quick question before we get into this final piece. On the album, it says Eros, the Prince of Poetry.
Yeah.
Name change?
Yeah.
Intentional album drop, name change? What's happening here?
So Eros works for several reasons. Eros being the Prince of Poetry, Eros being my actual name that I'm going by, the moniker I'm going to be going by, going forward. The Prince of Poetry was initially a name that I picked as an honor or tribute to those that came before us, the Langston Hughes, the Nikki Giovannis, the Maya Angelos of the world. And even further back than that, from Bible writers, Asaph, King Davis, King Solomon. I always felt that those of us who come into the line of poetry are descendants. Therefore, we're just princes and princesses of the art. And I thought it would be somewhat, and this is just my opinion, somewhat big-headed or slightly, and this is just my own thought, disrespectful to consider myself like the top of the art. So I'm not king of poetry, and I didn't want to say that about myself. I wanted to just make sure I showed the proper level of respect for those that came before me. But then after really thinking about what it is that I do, the Prince of Poetry felt too vague. I needed something to really allow people to think of when they connected love, or thought of love, and they thought of me, that the two feelings would coincide with one another. Where like, you know, this connection here. Eros is one of the versions of love. You know, we talked about storge, philia, agape, and eros love. I spend a lot of time talking about romantic love because I believe in it so much. I want it so much. I want to manifest it in my own life. I want to, you know, find the person for me that I'm supposed to feel this in exchange, this energy I have with. And most of my writings take place from a romantic standpoint. And so the name Eros came from that. The Prince of Poetry is still my title, but Eros is the name that I feel that God wanted me to have. It's what I'm using, and it makes sense in this season that I'm in.
I love that. I love that. Well, Eros it is. Going forward. So this has been amazing. Please share a piece.
I'm going to share a piece with you that no one has heard. And it's called Last Night. Last night. Wow. I mean, last night. How? I mean, last night we howled. The way we made love make the angels jealous. It felt zealous. They've never seen human beings fly without wings and ascend to heights that they've never been. We were intimate. And there was favor in your flavor, intimates, and we were really into it. No thoughts of ending it, even when we finished it. I was inside of you. I sat and had a conversation with your lower vibrations, talked to your trauma, spoke to your subconscious about everything that makes you self-conscious. You said, Eros, now that you're inside of me, I need you to understand every side of me. Do more than just have sex with this body. Love me on a level more godly. My body be where God be. Having access to you physically was just a small part of it. You see, you've been with men who loved your shape but couldn't differentiate when you were bent out of it. That's why when love started, you were always stopping it. That's why you took open heart and put lock on it, because you needed to feel secure. So you boxed your love behind a metal door, safe. That's not where you wanted it to stay, but you hadn't found a better place, and there we lay, centimeters apart, hands on hearts. I pump love into your chest while I give you my breath. CPR. See, we are still recovering. This is where your deepest love is. I'm the first one to discover it. We laughed at your other lovers. They be Christopher Columbus, couldn't find your spot with compass. There's so much more it encompasses, but we've accomplished it. The moon watched us take full advantage of the nighttime. It felt like it lasted a lifetime. You haven't made love until you've made love with your lifeline. I'm gonna wife mine. You ever been so mesmerized after sex that you had to sit and write lines? While sipping white wine, we walk a fine line between flesh and spirit. We rekindled our ancestors when we slept together. The climax lasted forever. We came again when we exited each other. No secret lovers. We love out loud. Wow. We gave each other our best. You ever manifest before sex? Process your pain. Sex after that is never the same. It's intense and insane. There's no rain made to extinguish twin flames. We bear all. The heavens erupt in applause, proud of our calls, because people focus so much on the physical that they neglect to remember that sex is spiritual. But who cares about other people when you're blessed enough to make love to your equal? We're all yearning for that. I think it's worth a lifetime searching for that. And if even I couldn't get another breath after the fact, it would have been all worth it for that. Thank you for last night.
Wow. Wow. such a message. And I think a perfect way to end our time together. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with me and being vulnerable with me and trusting me to guide this experience, this episode of Eye Recite. If people are looking to connect with you, where can they find you? Where would you like for them to find you at on social medias and sorts?
Yes, please. If you got your phones on you right now while you're watching this, please take them out. Look me up on Instagram at _Prince of Poetry. _Prince of Poetry. You can also find me here on Facebook at the Prince of Poetry. That's my artist page. Or you can follow me while I still have the capacity on my personal page at Christian Bowie. Christian is spelled the same way as Christian, just an accent mark with BA. Bowie, Bowie. I'm on Twitter, TikTok, everywhere is the Prince of Poetry. Please follow me. Let's connect. And book me, please. I would love to show up at your events and be there to bless you all in any way that I can. Thank you guys so much for the time and for your support.
Thank you.
Oh, and download the LoveHer album. Most important. Go listen to it.
I'm coming for that next. LoveHer, the LoveHer album. Stream that, play that, share that. It is a beautiful listening experience, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy that. Thank you, Eros.
Thank you.
Poetry. I am Kai Love. You can follow me wherever you can find me. Y'all know I'm around. So on the Eye Recite Facebook page, Eye Recite also has a Twitter page at Eye Recite, EYERECITE. Personally, you can connect with me on Twitter at Kai Loves You, KAILOVESU. I am also on Instagram. Just add a 2 to that, Kai Loves You 2. And we are out of here. Peace and blessings.